How do you write about lightning? About the way it strikes, sudden, blinding, and unforgettable, then vanishes before your mind catches up to what just happened? That's what it's like trying to describe Michael Jordan. He didn't just play basketball, he rewrote it, frame by frame, like a composer who could make silence feel as dramatic as sound. Jordan wasn't just a scorer, or a dunker, or a defender. He was all of those, folded into a myth. 1 minute, he was levitating like a ghost. The next, he was dissecting you like a scalpel. But what made him different? Let's find out through the moments. 10 of them. 10 flashes of divine brilliance. Moments where we stopped asking if Jordan was the greatest and started wondering if he was even human. He wasn't supposed to play. Hours before Game 5, Michael Jordan was curled up in a fetal position on the hotel room floor, shivering, sweating, dehydrated, barely able to move. He hadn't eaten. He could hardly speak. The team doctor would later call it food poisoning. Others said it was the flu. Whatever it was, it hit him like a truck. By morning, it looked like the Chicago Bulls would have to play without him.
I eat the pizza all by myself. Nobody else eats. Eat the pizza. I wake up about 2:30, throwing up left and right.
And yet, there he was. Just before tip-off, he showed up at the Delta Center, visibly weak and glassy-eyed. Trainers told him to sit. Teammates told him to rest. But Michael? He did what only Michael could do. He suited up. Why? Because the series was tied 2-2. Because the championship was on the line. Because the Utah Jazz were hungry. And the building was roaring. And because Michael Jordan didn't just play basketball, he lived for moments like this. The first quarter was rough. You could see it in his body language. He moved like he was wading through water. He wasn't attacking the rim. His legs were slow. His defense was flat. He looked like he might collapse at any minute. The Bulls fell behind by 16. Then something changed. In the second quarter, Jordan started to sweat differently, not from fever, but from rhythm. His eyes began to sharpen. He hit a floater, then a jumper, then a three. The Jazz crowd, which had been deafening, started to go quiet. Something unexplainable was happening. He wasn't getting stronger. He was locking in. It wasn't adrenaline. It was will. A kind of mental override. A refusal to surrender. Like he was burning through whatever life force he had left and rationing it, possession by possession. By halftime, he had 17 points. By the third, 26. And suddenly, the impossible started to feel inevitable. You could see the disbelief on Utah's faces. They'd game, planned for Jordan, sure, but not this version. Not the one who looked like a ghost, yet played like a man possessed. He didn't drive past people, he read them. He didn't leap over defenders, he timed them. Every shot was a decision, every movement measured. And somehow, as the fourth quarter ticked down, the game was tied. Under a minute left, and then it happened. Jordan, stumbling up the court, took a pass at the top of the key. He faked, gathered, rose, and buried a three-point dagger that broke the game open. The camera panned to his face, not roaring, not smug, but exhausted. He had nothing left. When the final buzzer rang, he couldn't walk to the bench. Scottie Pippen had to carry him, literally carry him, off the floor. But look closer at that moment. The way Jordan leans into Pippen's shoulder. The way his legs hang like ropes. It doesn't look like a victory lap. It looks like a man who gave everything. So how did he do it? How does someone play 44 minutes with a 103-degree fever, 0 energy, no strength, and still drop 38 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and a win? What does it take to override your own body? What kind of focus allows you to block out nausea, fatigue, cramps, and tunnel vision and see only the rim? And maybe the biggest question of all, if this was Michael Jordan at his weakest, what was his limit? Because that night, in Salt Lake City, it wasn't just basketball we witnessed. It was something closer to mythology. A moment where the mind outpowered the body, where the spirit outshined the sickness, where greatness didn't just show up, it refused to stay down. And if you thought that was the peak, just wait. The next moment proved Jordan didn't need health or rest. He just needed the ball in his hands. There are moments that make a career. And then there are moments that redefine what a career can be. These were the ones. 3 seconds left. Bulls down by 1. It's win or go home. This wasn't the finals. It wasn't even the conference finals. But what happened next would become one of the defining moments of Jordan's legend, and the moment Cleveland never truly recovered from. The Bulls had fought their way into this moment, but the Cavaliers were still the favorites. They had swept Chicago in the regular season. They were younger, deeper, and hungry. It was supposed to be their time, but as the inbound play was drawn, everyone in the Richfield Coliseum knew exactly where the ball was going, to Michael Jordan. And somehow, that was the most terrifying part. Brad Sellers stood at the sideline, ball in hand. Jordan darted toward the top of the key. Quick, sharp, fearless. Craig Alo was right behind him, arms out, chasing like a man trying to stop a storm. Jordan caught the pass near the foul line, took one dribble to his left, then rose. But he didn't shoot right away. He hung there, suspended in air, as if time had paused just for him. Alo leapt to contest, but it was too soon. Jordan was still hanging. And then, he let it go. The buzzer sounded. Swish. Jordan's feet hit the floor, and in one motion he sprang upward again, fist pumping, yelling, eyes wild with joy. Behind him, Craig Alo collapsed to the ground. His body gave out as the arena gave in. In those few seconds, Michael Jordan didn't just win a playoff series. He arrived. That image. Jordan mid. Air. Body tilted. Fist clenched in mid. Celebration. Became one of the most iconic snapshots in sports history. You've seen it on murals, magazine covers, bedroom walls. Because that wasn't just a game. Winner. It was the moment Jordan stopped being a rising star and became inevitable. He didn't roar because he was surprised. He roared because the world had finally caught up. This was the first chapter in a story that would repeat itself for a decade. Last second, everything on the line. One man with the ball. And every time, you knew, before the championships, before the MVPs, before the world truly understood who they were watching, there was this game. Jordan's Bulls were underdogs by a mile. They had won just 30 games. He was in only his second season, coming off a broken foot that sidelined him most of the year. And now, here he was, walking into the Boston Garden, facing Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, the defending champion Celtics. Arguably the greatest team ever assembled. This wasn't supposed to be close. What happened instead? Became legend. From the moment the ball was tipped, something felt different. Jordan wasn't playing to keep up. He was playing to take over. Jumpers from the elbow, floaters through traffic, reverse layups with two defenders on his back, and the fadeaways, always the fadeaways, arching like prayers above outstretched arms. Bird guarded him. Then McHale, then Dennis Johnson, then triple teams. It didn't matter. Jordan carved through Boston's defense like wind through trees, unseen but undeniable. Every possession became a clinic, every dribble a warning. And still, he kept going. 54 points by the end of regulation. The game went to overtime, then double overtime. And still, Jordan didn't stop. He finished with 63 points. Still the most points ever scored in a single playoff game. No one has touched that number since. But it wasn't just the total, it was the stage. He did it in Boston Garden against a team of future Hall of Famers in a playoff game with no help. And when it was over, when Jordan had left every ounce of himself on that floor, the man who had seen it all, Larry Bird, stood in front of reporters and said only this. That was God disguised as Michael Jordan. The Bulls lost the game in double OT, but Jordan, he walked out of Boston with something far more permanent than a win. He walked out with the league's respect, with the Celtics' fear, with history in his hands. That night wasn't about stats. It was a message. I'm not coming. I'm already here. It was supposed to be the end. The Bulls' dynasty was unraveling. Scottie Pippen's back was failing. Phil Jackson's final game as coach had already been announced. Dennis Rodman was fading. And Jordan? He was playing on fumes, older, slower, wearier than we'd ever seen him. He had nothing left to prove. And yet, with everything collapsing, he delivered the most poetic moment of his career. Down 3. 40 seconds left. The Utah crowd roaring. Jordan drove past his defender for a quick, icy layup, cutting the lead to 1.
When you lose by this narrow margin, speaking of the Utah Jazz, there are so many things to look back on. But the Howard Isley 3 that was taken away in the first half will eat at them all summer long.
Then came the steal. On the next possession, he crept behind Karl Malone in the low post like a shadow, stripped the ball clean, no foul, no double team, no hesitation, just a quiet, instinctive act of theft. A moment only he saw coming. He turned, and the floor belonged to him. He dribbled across half court. No timeout, no huddle, no strategy, just silence, just Jordan. Brian Russell met him at the top. The arena held its breath. Jordan hesitated, crossed to the right, then snapped it back left. Russell stumbled, just enough. It was all the daylight he needed. Jordan rose, released, held the follow, threw like a man signing the final line of a story he'd already written. Swish. The crowd went silent, not in defeat, but in disbelief. Time seemed to pause around him. Jordan stood frozen in that iconic pose, arm extended, wrist hanging, body leaning slightly forward, as if even gravity knew it had to wait. That shot didn't just win the game. It closed the book. It ended an era. He walked off the floor with 45 points, 6 championships, and not a word spoken. Because he didn't need a speech. That shot was the speech. And sometimes, the greatest goodbyes are the ones that don't say a word. 10 days after coming out of retirement, Michael Jordan returned to the mecca of basketball, Madison Square Garden. But he wasn't wearing 23. He wore 45. A different number. A different chapter. A man caught between baseball dreams and basketball destiny.
He'll be dealing with Charles Oakley, and there is number 45. In case you haven't heard it already, Jordan wore that number in junior high, wore it as he went to baseball for 18 months, and has returned with 45 because number 23 is retired and hanging above the rafters at the new United Center in Chicago.
His timing was off. His legs weren't ready. He hadn't played on an NBA floor in nearly 2 years. The world expected rust. They expected hesitation. They expected humanity. But when the lights came on, it became clear. Jordan hadn't come back to adjust. He came back to remind. From the opening tip, it was textbook. Only the textbook was one he wrote. The fadeaways were precise. The footwork was crisp. The pull-ups came without warning. Fast. Breaks looked effortless. The Knicks threw everything at him. Ewing's size, Stark's pressure, the Garden's noise. Nothing worked. By the end of the first quarter, it felt familiar. By the second, it felt inevitable. And by the fourth, it felt sacred. 50. 5 points. A silent crowd. A statement made. And just when the Garden thought he'd chase 60, Jordan pivoted. He drew every defender into the paint, froze them, and then, like a conductor guiding an orchestra, dished the ball off to a wide-open Bill Wennington for the game-winning dunk. Because Jordan didn't just come back to score, he came back to control. Every angle, every second, every heartbeat of that arena belonged to him. And in that moment, the world remembered. This wasn't just a comeback. This was a return to order. It wasn't a playoff game. It wasn't for a championship. There were no banners on the line, no rings to be won. But somehow, it became one of the most iconic moments in the history of sport. The 1,988 slam dunk contest, Chicago Stadium. Jordan in his home arena. Dominique Wilkins standing across from him. The human highlight film. One of the greatest dunkers the league had ever seen. It wasn't just a contest. It was a duel. Power versus poetry. Muscle versus motion. Dominique came in swinging. Windmills that shook the rim. Dunks that thumped through the air like thunder. And each time, Jordan answered with something softer yet somehow stronger. Grace, elevation, elegance. Then came the final dunk. Jordan walked to the far end of the court, stood at the free throw line. The crowd leaned in. The tension was electric. 3 slow dribbles, a deep breath, and then he ran. He took off, and for just a moment, just a split second, he floated. Arms stretched, tongue out, legs tucked beneath him. His body arched like it had been sculpted mid-air. He didn't just rise, he hovered. It was a picture that didn't seem possible, and yet there he was, hanging above the hardwood, like time itself had frozen for him. Boom! He slammed it through. The building erupted. The judges didn't hesitate. 50-ampere perfect score. But what people remember wasn't the number. It was the feeling, the vision, that image of flight, the moment where it felt like Jordan had captured gravity and held it hostage just long enough to remind us what was possible. Even today, that silhouette is everywhere. On shoes, on posters, on walls, on dreams. Because that moment wasn't about a dunk. It wasn't about the rim or the points or the trophy. It was about iconography. It was about the exact second that Michael Jordan stopped being a player and became eternal. When you make your first couple too, you make your first cup, you just kind of anxious to launch some more, and he definitely was in his own. I don't know if we remind me of myself. I'll give Michael a lot of creditability, but I don't think he can match my three-point shooting well. They said Clyde Drexler was on Jordan's level. They said Clyde was the better shooter. So Jordan didn't say anything. He just walked onto the court and lit Portland on fire. 6'3", pointers in one half, 35 points in 2 quarters. The kind of first, half explosion you'd expect from Steph Curry, not from a guy known for mid-range dominance. After the 6'3", he turned to the broadcast table, shrugged, and smiled, as if to say, I can't even explain it. That shrug became legend, because it wasn't arrogance, it was awe. Even Jordan seemed surprised at how easily he was bending reality. That night, he dropped 39-inch 3/4, and the Bulls routed the Blazers. But the numbers didn't tell the story. The shrug did. Because when you reach a level where even you can't explain your greatness, that's when everyone else stops trying. There's dominance. And then there's ownership. Jordan didn't just beat teams. He authored the endings. The Knicks were up 2-1 in the series, and they wanted to end it with fists, not finesse. They bruised him with elbows, dragged him through screens, shoved him after whistles. Charles Oakley, John Starks, Patrick Ewing. New York wasn't just physical, it was personal. They didn't just want to beat Jordan, they wanted to wear him down. And for a moment, it looked like it might work. But in Game 4, under the harsh lights of Madison Square Garden, Michael Jordan didn't flinch. He answered not with words, but with fire. 54 points, 6 threes, 60% from the field. But it wasn't just the volume, it was the manner. He didn't sprint, he didn't scream. He just hit shot after shot, cold, clean, calculated. Every jumper was a surgical incision. Every fadeaway a lesson in geometry. His footwork danced at the edge of space, his release pure muscle memory. He didn't beat the Knicks. He disassembled them. Shot by shot, inch by inch, mind by mind, and slowly, the crowd that had mocked him fell quiet. Because sometimes revenge doesn't come loud. Sometimes it doesn't come violent. Sometimes it comes in the form of silence after the net snaps. Jordan didn't retaliate with fouls. He retaliated with art. Because when your weapon is the mid-range and your mood is focused, you don't get mad. You get precise. So, what made him different? Some nights are for records, others for revenge. But this night was something else entirely. This was a declaration. Jordan didn't just put on a scoring clinic. He burned the court to the ground and rewrote what domination looked like. 69 points, 18 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals, 50 minutes played. It was the kind of stat line that feels like a glitch. Like the scoreboard forgot there were rules. But Jordan didn't do it with circus shots or heat checks. He did it with discipline. Jumpers from the elbow. Fadeaways that arced like they'd been drawn with a compass. Spin moves, step, throughs, backdowns. Every bucket was sharp, surgical. The Cavaliers sent everything at him. Traps, double teams, hard fouls. Nothing worked. At one point, he crossed over a defender, nailed his 60th point, and clapped his hands, not in celebration, but in hunger, like he was annoyed it had taken him that long. He didn't smile. He didn't showboat. He just turned back to the play, because this wasn't about highlights. It was about control. That night, Jordan didn't just beat Cleveland. He dismantled them. Every defender became a shadow. Every scheme, a failed idea. He wasn't playing basketball anymore. He was bending it to his rhythm, his pace, his story, and when the final buzzer rang, he didn't celebrate. Because for him, it wasn't extraordinary. It was expected. This wasn't just another game. It was a handoff between eras. Magic Johnson, the face of the league, the symbol of Showtime basketball, stood across from a younger, hungrier challenger. Michael Jordan was chasing his first title. Magic already had 5. And yet, it felt like the torch was already trembling in Magic's hands. Midway through Game 3, the moment arrived. Jordan drove hard down the lane, slicing through defenders like smoke through a net. Sam Perkins stepped in to block. The crowd braced for a right-handed finish. But mid-air, Jordan did something different. He switched hands. Still floating, he pulled the ball from his right to his left, adjusted in mid-flight, and laid it off the glass with perfect spin. It was quiet for a second. Then the world erupted. Even Magic Johnson blinked in disbelief, eyes wide, head shaking. That wasn't just a layup. That was an announcement. This is my league now. Jordan finished with 29 points, 13 assists, 9 rebounds. A near triple-double in a pivotal finals game. But no one remembers the numbers. They remember the flight, the hand switch, the way time seemed to pause between elevation and improvisation. It didn't feel like a play. It felt like a reveal, as if Jordan had one last trick hidden behind the curtain and finally decided to show it. And as the ball dropped softly through the net, Jordan didn't scream or flex. He just ran back, like a magician closing the show, not with a bang, but with a bow. If you like this video, don't forget to press the subscribe button and ring the bell to receive notifications about the latest videos from our channel. Please leave your comments and suggestions below in the comments section, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. This action also contributes to motivating us to work even more diligently. Have a great day.